Well, welcome back to Dragon Pugs. I am Gregg, and I am the author of the Sporran, which we are reading. We are in, I think this must be the 6th episode, as we try to read through this, through my book slowly as we go. And if you remember last time, the Jacob, Will, and Jenny had found some books in the library on cricket, which explained that this was a cricket ball, not a dragon's egg or some kind of, or a baseball puked inside out. And they had found a book on Sporrans that Jacob took home. And then Jacob discovered that bearded stranger's name, because he's the author of the book on cricket. His name is Hamish McGregor. Hamish McGregor. Good Scottish name there. And he graduated from Oxford University, the biography said in the book. And he's a professor at St. Andrews, where Jacob's father is. And Jacob's going to go there soon. So, strange that Hamish McGregor would show up in Jacob's home. Not Jacob's home, but his hometown. Next chapter is called The Turkish Delight. If you ever read the Chronicles of Narnia, you might remember that Turkish Delight is a kind of a candy that the White Witch in Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe uses to tempt Edmund, right? So this chapter is called Turkish Delight. Let's see if there's a connection there. This Hamish McGregor character had to have something to do with all this, Jacob reasoned as he went about his morning. It all couldn't be just a coincidence, could it? The Sporran arriving as he seemed to arrive in town, the cricket ball, the man mentioning to me what I thought at the time to be an insect type of cricket, when he mentioned it to me at the baseball field. Will then just happening to find a book that he wrote, and then him appearing and disappearing in the library. This is all very weird. Too weird. Jacob was brushing his teeth when he remembered the Sporran. I haven't checked it this morning. He quickly went back to his room and opened the flap with great anticipation. There at the bottom of the pouch was a small and shiny purple metallic something. It was square and appeared to be some kind of food wrapped in a foil wrapper. Turkish Delight, read the foil. What on earth is Turkish Delight? He stuck it in his coat pocket and went off to church with his mother. Both Will and Jenny were doing things with their families that afternoon, and so they didn't have the chance to meet up. Jacob sent a message to them both, though, in hopes that one of them might have a thought. Jenny and Will. As we sort of suspected, the creepy bearded guy is somehow connected to all this. He wrote the book on cricket, in fact. And do you have any idea what Turkish Delight might be? A package of it showed up in my Sporran this morning. Let me know if you have any thoughts. It's getting a little too weird around here. See you tomorrow. Jacob spent the afternoon with his mother, but was preoccupied by the Sporran and worrying about leaving her alone when he left for Scotland. Who knows what this stranger might do, he worried. Checking the computer later that night, there was a message from Will and another from Jenny. Will's message read this. Jacob, this is really bizarre. I wish I was getting out of here with you this week. I don't want to be around here with that bearded freak running around. And on Turkish Delight, well, that is something my Uncle Charlie calls the turkey and biscuits we always have the day after Thanksgiving. So maybe that package you have is some kind of powdered gravy or something. Hope you will make it through the night. See you at school. Your friend, alive or not, Will. Jacob then read Jenny's message. Jacob and Will. First, Will, you are the freakiest one around here, not that poor old guy. Second, Turkish Delight is not some kind of leftover poultry food. If I remember correctly, Turkish Delight is the food that the evil witch used to lure Edmund into her clutches in Narnia. Remember the Chronicles of Narnia books? I am looking for my old copy, but haven't found it yet. But if I'm right, I would not open it, and certainly not eat it. Hope to see you both again in the morning. Jenny. Of course! He remembered his dad reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe to him a few years ago. Yes, Turkish Delight was some kind of treat that witch used to get Edmund to bring her brother and sisters back into Narnia to be trapped. That was just the story, though, right? It couldn't really be connected, could it? He wondered. Chronicles of Narnia are some of my favorite books. I hope you've read them. If you haven't, you really should read them. C.S. Lewis, The Chronicles of Narnia. They're really good stories and really important stories. So I wanted to, when I wrote the Sporran here, pay a little homage to my one of my great heroes, C.S. Lewis, and his great book. So there you have Turkish Delight. Jenny was right. He shouldn't take any chances. Barely touching the package with his fingers, he tossed the Turkish Delight into the back of his desk drawer and shut it quickly. That evening, he would sit with his mother watching a video and scribbling on a piece of paper. Over and over again, he would write down the clues in different orders. Sporran, Hamish McGregor, cricket ball, Turkish Delight, Scotland golf, dad, lions, flags. Then he would write bearded man, McGregor, Turkish Delight, Sporran, cricket ball, dad, flags, lions, Scotland, Dusty, store, St. Andrews. What are you working on, Jakey? Mrs. Boyd asked him. Just puzzling and doodling and stuff, Jacob answered, barely looking up from his paper. I know you're nervous about going to Scotland, his mom said, anticipating some of what he was puzzling on. But you're going to have a great time with your dad, and this is a wonderful opportunity to visit places most kids never get to see in person, castles and ruins and suits of armor and all that stuff you love. I know, it's just that I don't want to leave you here alone and don't want to leave Jenny and Will, and he stopped himself. I'll tell you what, if it makes you feel any better, why don't you have Jenny and Will come by and check on me now and again while you're gone, she said. Okay, he answered and went back to puzzling and doodling on his paper. And since you are leaving in just 2 days, why don't I take tomorrow off and we can spend the day together, Mrs. Boyd offered. Oh no, I blew it now, Jacob was thinking, as he realized spending the day with his mom would not help him get to the bottom of the mysteries now enveloping his life and preoccupying his mind. But there was nothing he could do about that now without hurting his mom's feelings. He wasn't going to do that. That's always a very good idea. Don't hurt your mom's feelings. A full day with his mom would be fun before he left to spend the week in another country. So Jacob collected his enthusiasm before answering. Great, Mom, let's do it. Is it okay if I go and call Will and Jenny and tell them they won't see me tomorrow? Jacob's mom smiled and answered, Yeah, sure. As Jacob left the room, his mom yelled after him, And have them come over for dinner tomorrow night as a farewell party for you. First, Jacob called Will and then Jenny. Because things were getting a bit hairy around there, they decided to take a vote on whether or not they should tell some adults about it. Will voted yes, because he had become increasingly nervous since his run-in with the cricket in the library. Jacob voted no, because he was afraid someone would take the Sporran away. And besides, he would be with his father in a few days, and he could tell him if he needed to. He thought his dad may well be the only adult on the planet who was sure to understand and trust in what he would tell him. Surely, if his dad thought this was a dangerous situation, he would call back and alert people. Jenny agreed with Jacob, not wanting her reputation as supreme intellect, an overall very reasonable person, to be undermined by some crazy accusations about a magic purse and disappearing balls, cups, and mousetraps. The secret of the Sporran remained sealed. The next chapter is called Leaving Home. So let's get Jacob ready to head to Scotland. The next few days passed without incident. Jacob spent most of his time with his mother shopping and packing for his trip to Scotland. Will and Jenny continued to puzzle on the situation, but nothing major happened. There was no more appearances or disappearances, and McGregor, the bearded stranger, seemed to vanish just as he had appeared some days before. The morning of Jacob's flight arrived sunny and warm, the perfect spring day. Birds were chirping, and spring bulbs that had spent the winter and early spring in hibernation were in full flowery bloom. As it would turn out, it was the last such perfect day he would see in many days. That sounds ominous. Jacob's mother was loading his bags into the trunk of their car when up the drive flew Jenny. Out of breath, she dropped her bike and asked Mrs. Boyd where Jacob was. "He's gathering his backpack in his room," she answered, and then shouted to Jenny as Jacob's friend rushed toward the house. "But we have to leave in just minutes." "I know," answered Jenny. "I just want to tell him something." Facing the other way as she rushed into the door, Mrs. Boyd could barely make out Jenny's reply. Jenny found Jacob sitting on his bed, putting books in the notepads and pencils and snacks in his backpack to occupy his time on the long flight across the Atlantic. "Jacob," Jenny said, even more out of breath than the run into the house and up the stairs to his room. "Jacob," she repeated, I have it. I have the connection." "What connection?" "The next connection between the clues. It's your trip. It's England. It's Scotland." "What do you mean?" Jacob answered as he stood up from his packing. "Think about it," said Jenny, excitedly launching into a series of questions that she already knew the answer to herself. "Where do they play cricket?" "England and Scotland." "Where did the Chronicles of Narnia take place?" "Some little English college town, right?" "Where did the Sporran come from?" "Scotland, which is connected to England and the same nation called the United Kingdom." "Where did you say that McGregor guy came from? If that was him." "England and Scotland, right?" "You see," she concluded her presentation as if she was an excited lawyer trying her first case. "It all connects. It's not very rational of me to believe this, but somehow I think you are meant to go on that trip today." Jacob thought he felt the hair on his toes curl at the realization that things may be soon coming to a head for the mystery and for him. Thoughts and fears flooded his mind as he listened to Jenny. "Why me, here on Long Branch Drive," he thought. "Why on a plane? Oh, what will become of me? Will I be the next to disappear? What if the Sporran makes the pilot or the engines or something disappear in mid-flight? What if a gun shows up in the pouch and sets off a metal detector and gets me arrested or something?" Just in case something were to happen to him, and with his mom yelling up to his window to hurry him along, Jacob quickly scribbled a note to his mother and slipped it deep into the top drawer of his desk. "Okay, Jenny, old friend, let's go," said Jacob as he slapped his friend gently on the back and jokingly added, "It's been nice knowing you." Will you have email or somehow we can communicate? Asked Jenny, trying to ignore the sense of doom in Jacob's tone. Sure, once I get to St. Andrews with my dad, which should be in about 24 hours, after the plane ride, the taxi or two, and a train, the a flight across from where Jacob is to Scotland takes all night long. So that would be he's got to get to the airport, wait for the plane, get on the plane, spend the plane all night long on the plane, then get a ride to the train, and then get a train to St. Andrews, and then so you see it's like going to take a whole day to get there. The thought of all those planes and taxis and trains made him dread his departure even more, as he stopped himself and added, maybe it would be better if I just crawled in the Sporran and had it take me there, huh? Yeah. I'll send you a message if I can come up with anything else on this, said Jenny. Good luck. Mrs. Boyd had the car running when the two arrived at the car and said goodbye for the last time. I will check in on you from time to time, just like Jacob asked me to, said Jenny through the open car window on Jacob's side of the car. Mrs. Boyd flashed a thumbs-up sign to Jenny and started backing the car out of the drive. Jacob and his mother were both nervous, though they both tried not to show it. Mrs. Boyd was uneasy about her son flying all the way to England by himself and having to then make his way to another plane and trains to meet up with his father in Scotland. Jacob was similarly worried about making all the right decisions that would get him on the right plane and the right trains at the right time to go to the right place. That would be pretty scary, wouldn't it? It's pretty nervous. When I travel like that, it's going to be pretty nervous. So imagine if I was 12. I'd be pretty nervous. I'd be pretty nervous. That would have been bad enough, he thought to himself, but I also have to carry this thing. The ride to the airport went by in an instant, and before he could believe it, Jacob had said goodbye to his mother, made it through security, and onto the first leg of his journey across the sea. The ceiling of the plane's cabin was tall, and passing through the first class, he saw what reminded him of a cemetery or a factory or something for blue leather easy chairs. If all the seats are like this, it would be a nice, comfy flight, he thought. Then a flight attendant asked to see his ticket and walked him back through a curtain where 3 big rows of much smaller seats were stretched across the width of the jet. Oh, this will not be as comfortable as I had imagined, a somewhat disappointed Jacob thought. Mr. Boyd, the stewardess leaned over him with a big smile. You need anything at all, you just let me know. My name is Kelly, okay? She handed his ticket back to him and walked away. His was a seat with a window, which Jacob thought he would like. No one sat next to him for a while, as more and more people got on. Then a woman introduced herself as Mrs. Wiley and sat down. She turned out to be a pleasant older lady who made fine company, particularly during the more nerve-wracking moments of the flight, like takeoff and landing, when the plane was to shake a little bit from turbulence. Jacob imagined Mrs. Wiley had some rumbling in her stomach, as he had in his during those moments. Talking about his Little League career or Mrs. Wiley's grandchildren seemed to help pass those times for both of them. Jacob spent the flight reading his tour books that he and his mom had purchased to get him ready for his trip, watching the TV that hung from the ceiling in the aisle in front of his seat, and snoozing. Mrs. Wiley pretty much just snoozed. Periodically, Jacob would reach down into his backpack, which he stored under the seat in front of him. He wanted to make sure the Sporran was still there and in good shape. Since that McGregor guy was back home, and since he was somehow connected to this, he wondered what would happen to the Sporran as he got further away. Will it stop working as it gets further away from home? Will it disappear altogether? Will it somehow turn on me or from taking it away? Somewhere toward the end of the movie, his dad would have called a chick flick. Jacob's head leaned against the window and he fell asleep. Sometime later, a thud at his feet woke him up with a startle. His backpack had slipped off his lap where he had left it when he fell asleep. Leaning forward to shove it back under the seat in front of him, he felt something was different. He unzipped it, and there, in the dark cave of his backpack, he noticed something bulging in the Sporran. His heart raced. Oh, here we go again. Is anyone looking? Mrs. Wiley was sleeping, so it was safe for him to look again. He opened the flap. Too dark at the bottom of the backpack to see, he would have to lift it out into the light. Slowly, he raised the open Sporran up out of the backpack, which sat between his feet in front of him. As the illumination of the lights above Jacob's head penetrated the darkness that bathed the leather pouch, his eye caught sight of its contents. What he saw caused him to gasp unexpectedly and his heart to race. With one quick motion, Jacob's hand dropped the Sporran back into his backpack. His right foot kicked it under the seat in front of him, and his head flew back into his own seat. His head was swimming. Wow. What is in the backpack? What is in his Sporran in the backpack? Well, we'll have to wait till next time to find out. The next chapter is called Lady in the Loom. I'll tell you what, if I were on a transatlantic flight, I would not want any magic happening. In the dark at night, flying over the ocean somewhere, you don't know where you are. No, we don't want magic happening. But the next chapter is called Lady in the Loom, so I hope you'll come back for that, and we'll see what's going on. Till then, take care, keep your reading. We'll see you soon.